Hello, Superwoman. It's time for us to discuss one thing or the other about you. And you are welcome to the show that is for women, by women. And then the brothers have a seat in the background. You're welcome to Smooth 98.1, where we love music and we love life. We love the sisters, and we have a space for them every Wednesday from 11 till 11:50, right here on the station that loves music and loves life. My name is Oluwaseun, and it's always a pleasure to be with you every Wednesday. It's the 14th day in the month of August 2024, and as I would often say, there will never be another 14th of August 2024. So I hope you're grateful for that gift and you're ready to roll with us right here on Soul Sisters. If you're following us across all social media platforms, you will have seen the flyer ahead of time announcing who will be coming to the show and what we'll be discussing. But if you have not seen it, it means that you're not following us. But it's never too late. You can search for us across all social media platforms at Smooth 981 FM on X or Twitter. And then there is Instagram at Smooth 981 without the FM. Facebook is at Smooth 981 FM. And currently we're streaming live to YouTube where you can see my face and the lovely face of my guest at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. That is the handle you're searching for. And I think you should subscribe so that you don't miss out on any content that we have for you. So, as they would say, without further ado, let's get into the conversation. But of course, there is no way I'm going to start this conversation without telling you a little bit about the powerhouse that I have as my guest this morning. And she is an author, she is a poet, she's a publisher, she's a bookseller, she's a festival organizer, she is a cultural activist. I dare call her an institution, actually. And she's gotten countless recognitions and awards for her works and what she stands for, from the PEN Award in America, as well as the Ken Saro-Wiwa Award for Prose in Nigeria, to the list of Orange Prize in the UK for her debut novel, yep, The Secrets of Life of Babashegi's Wives. And she was named the African Literary Person of the Year at some point in 2020, at some point, yeah. And she was the recipient of the inaugural Aficionado Award in 2023. And it's quite important to mention that she was Financial Times list of 25 most influential women. So please give it up for the one and the only Lola Shoneyin. Good morning to you.
A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you, and I cannot wait to dig into the chats, at least trying or attempting to get into the space of the phenomenal Lola Shoneyin. So that said, I want to understand a little bit of your titles, and for the sake of education for someone, or at least some of the things I described you as. You are an author, a publisher, you are a storyteller, you are a poet, and also you are a cultural activist. I like the cultural activist part before we get back to books. What, number one, how do you describe cultural activism, and why do you describe yourself as one?
Thank you so much. So in my view, cultural activism is activities and which are carried out very intentionally for the promotion, the development, and the celebration of culture. And when people talk about culture, there are two cultures. There's one with a capital C, and then there's culture when we're talking about our traditional ways and means and food, and we say that is not in our culture to do that. So that's culture, one type of culture, one definition of culture. But the other culture, which usually has a capital C, is referring to the more refined arts, you might say. So you're talking about literature, you're talking about dance, ballet, you're talking about things that involve meaningful recreation and the perfection of certain skills that are needed in every society to ensure that not only our history, but what we understand to be knowledge is carried out and, of course, presented to different generations in different forms.
Beautiful. Now, I'm curious. Something tells me, or I don't know if it's just my assumption, but somehow I feel like you're always working on something. It could be a book, it could be a poem, it could be a fest, it could be something. So I feel like you're constantly working on something, going by what you churn out. So what are you currently working on?
Oh, well, you're very right. I'm always working on some things. It would be erroneous to say one thing. And I feel some of the other activities that I get involved in will be jealous. So at the moment, so on a personal level, I'm writing my novel. I'm also writing my children's books. Many will remember if they follow me on X that I announced that I wanted to write a book on a particular uh, person that I consider to be a Nigerian hero, a modern Nigerian hero. So I'm doing that as well. I'm also always editing because I run a publishing house. I also run a bookstore, which means I'm involved in that process too. Knowing what books we're buying, ensuring that we get the books that people really want to read. I'm very hands-on, very happy to work on the floor of the bookshop if need be. I also run the Book Buzz Foundation, so I have 5 incredible women who work with me there. Of course, there's the publishing house. I work closely with them too. So you could say, I work on top of a totem pole, but there are all sorts of different concerns that I have my hands in. So I have my fingers in many pies.
Lovely. Must be delicious pies at the end of the day with what you churn out. So let's talk about you and writing. Who do you write for when you write?
Depends what I'm writing. If I'm writing my novel, I'm generally writing for, I always say I'm writing for an African audience because they're the ones I have in mind when I'm writing. They're the ones that I feel instinctively will understand the way that I write. When I'm writing for children, again, I'm very deliberate about writing for a certain type of Nigerian child. So I've been writing a series of children's books. I'm on number 8. I'm writing 18 because each one will be set in a state in northern Nigeria. So when I'm writing that one, I'm writing for the children, definitely. I'm putting my child hat on, trying to capture their voices, their realities, the way that they see the world. It's been an exercise in nostalgia.
Mm, network strikes again. Can you hear me? You're muted.
Yes, 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 I'm back.
Great. The last thing I heard was
So I
nostalgia.
say, yes, it's often an exercise in nostalgia for me because what I do is I take myself to my own childhood. When I don't have enough material for my own childhood, or the ducks are not aligning, I love talking to people, especially people from northern Nigeria, and I get them to ask me, to tell me about their lives when they were young and some of the mischievous things that they got up to. And that often forms the basis of those children's books that I've been writing. Um, but I'm also, while writing them, I'm also very aware that it's possible that it will be adults or teachers who will be reading the books to the children. So I try to kind of make sure it's almost like a double entendre. It's like you're writing for two people at the same time. So as an adult, when you're reading it, there's certain things that will jump out at you that you will understand. But a kid who is reading the same book may not quite understand those things yet. So I do it because I want to prompt conversations between the reader, if it's an adult, and the people for whom or to whom the person is reading. One thing I should add is that there's a website called northernlights.ng, where not only will you find the books for purchase, but I've created an audiobook. I read them myself, I recorded them myself, I put music to them myself. I did all that to ensure that any kid who buys the book can also, if you've got nobody to read it to you, you can press play and I will read the book to you in a fun way. So those are the sorts of things that I kind of get up to. And when you're talking about who I write for, whoever the audience is, who the appropriate voice must be used with the appropriate audience. It's something that I'm very aware of.
You know, as you were explaining the many things that you do as touching writing the books for the children and then also reading the book, something comes to mind. I don't know if you know the image. It's of a goddess, a certain goddess in India, and that is Mother Durga. She has, I think, about 8 hands. Do you know that? And that was literally the picture that came to my mind, because it's like there's so much going. And I'm
Yeah.
curious, why? Why do you have so what drives you to do, what you write for, who you write for? Because I'm coming back to the question of white children, white women, because I know a lot of things that you write revolve around that. You talk about domestic life and so on. So what drives you?
Um, I do feel embarrassed sometimes. I'm Nigerian. I am very aware of just the level of excellence with which so many of my colleagues and so many Nigerians have come across, the levels at which they operate. But sometimes when you look at the landscape, that excellence is sometimes not reflected in the things that people see. So whether it's because I spent a large part of my adult life being a school teacher, both in the UK and in Nigeria, I think I just have quite high standards. And I feel that my job as a person of my generation is to present books, initiatives, festivals, events, that reflect that excellence, that reflect qualities that can be paid forward by other people. I'm quite passionate about that. I want to be absolutely proud of where I come from, who I am, and what I do. And I think if that's going to happen, everybody has to make an effort. It's not something that we rely on government to do for us. Everybody has to get involved. Everybody has to do their bit. We have to raise the standards together. So I
Hmm.
think that's very important to me. And secondly, I'm quite a restless person. Um, and I have a bit of a dopamine addict as well. So I consciously am looking for projects, jobs, and occasions and things that will give me joy or make me feel uplifted. So where I can't find it, I go and chase it and find it and create it myself.
So, if I were to put the question to you that in your many years of experience as an author, as a publisher, as a cultural activist, as organizer of festivals, what is that moment? I would find it, I think it will be hard for you to probably put it into a moment, but some of the most rewarding moments for what you do, can you put them into words?
when you see your first book, I think there's something in your brain that does a cartwheel or a somersault. Um, and I think that's seeing my first book was a real high point for me. But that came with such a sense of responsibility as well. I kept thinking, oh my God, if my mom sees this poem now, oh, what if so and so thinks they're the person I'm talking about in this part? But I was, of course, when I published my first book, I was maybe 22 or 23. So I was really quite young. Um, but I think that was a big moment for me. I think every time I've seen a publication, I think altogether now, including the children's ones, I've got 3 books of poems, 1 novel. Yeah, this is going to be my 11th book that is coming out. And I still get the same joy. And I think that joy comes from hoping that somebody else who is not me will pick up that book and somehow I'll be able to transfer that same emotion, the joy, the sense of gratification, to those readers. I've also been very blessed to win awards, um, both in Nigeria and abroad, and that's always life affirming in a way. It tells you that you're doing all this work, which is very public facing. Very little of the work that I do is self-facing. That's the thing. I don't enjoy that kind of work. I like work that is going to impact people, that is going to touch people and change lives and get them to think differently. So that's when I think I'm at my best. So the awards are good, they're great, and they're beautiful, and they remind you that, okay, yeah, somebody noticed that you were doing something and just decided to support and reward you. And that's very, very pleasing. Um, I think other times that I have felt that I've had real high points are moments of growth. And that growth can be physical, physical space. It can be people who are coming around me to work with me. It can be a big sort of financial injection, which allows me to do things that I never imagined I'd be able to do. Those are all high points, all things to be extremely, extremely grateful for. I've been a very, very lucky person.
Beautiful. I would have said you should take us a little bit into the world of that luck, but we're going to let it rest for a bit. And one of the things that we would want you to do on the show this morning is to take the hand of a female author or would-be author this morning and walk them through the process of having that idea, having so many words in their head, or not even sure. There are times you hear, oh, you should write a book. You know so much, you should write a book. What's the process like and what should they do? And so, yes, that's what we intend to achieve this morning on Soul Sisters. So, in case you're listening and you're joining us for the first time, you are in the right place. And even if you're not a woman, you can still benefit from the conversation. So, I guess at least you have a little bit of an idea of who Lola Shoneyin is. After this, we will get right into the conversation. Now, if you have any question, you can always send them to WhatsApp, and the WhatsApp line is 0809 444 0981. If you're sending a message for the first time, kindly include your name and your location so that we know who's talking to us. My name is Oluwaseun Olusegun. So just after this, we get into that, and we start with what should be the first thing on your mind when you think of putting together. It could be anything, it could be novel, it could be something inspirational, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And that's one aspect of it. And the other aspect, one could say is, you're still with me, I guess.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to grab some water.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go on.
So, yeah. So, if someone says this is such an opportune time to be an author, an African author, like the world is ready for your stories, and the line, the future is Africa in terms of content and stories. Do you agree with that? Do you what are the things that you should do if you want to make money out of your book and you want to be recognized? All those chit chats about it, really.
No problem.
And the whole publishing. How did you become a publisher? From just writing to publishing, because that's another kettle of fish.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll talk about that as well.
How many minutes do we have?
Less than 20.
Oh, okay.
Roughly 20, thereabout.
Yeah, when do we go back? Now?
Oh, sorry. In some seconds, let's say 10 seconds.
Okay. Okay. Fantastic.
You want to write your book and you're not sure of how to start, everything is going to be all right, dear woman. And that is from Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, with the lovely voice of Thames. No Woman, No Cry. Of course, originally done by Bob Marley and the Wailers. You're listening to Soul Sisters right here on Smooth 98.1, where we love music, we love life, and we have such a huge space in our hearts for the sisters. That's why we have these discussions every Wednesday from 11 till 11:50. Okay, you're welcome. And my guest this morning is Lola Shoneyin, who is a lot of things, from being an author to being a bookseller to being a publisher. And of course, she puts together one of the best festivals when it concerns books, arts, and many other things in between. And on WhatsApp, if you want to contribute, you want to ask a question, you want to be sure of something you have heard, the line is 0809 444 0981. On WhatsApp, Bubemi says, it's such a pleasure to hear Lola Shoneyin talk about her work. Secret Lives of Baba Segi's Wives will forever remain one of my top African fiction novels. Lola is an inspiration all round. You can say that again. Okay, so let's get down.
Thank you.
Let's get right to it. And somebody wants to write a book. It could be a prose, it could be anything. And they're not sure of where to start. Is my passion enough? Do I need to learn more English words? Do I need great, absolutely stunning vocabulary? Or I first need to get somebody who will publish the book. Where should someone start when you're thinking of writing a book?
That's such a complex but very interesting question. So when I think back to there are a few things that I just want to say right off the bat, like I want people to understand. There are too many idle people walking the streets telling people that they are writers and they're not really producing anything. I use that word idle, which is quite harsh, because I really feel because writing is something that really takes time, and considering the fact that we all still have to eat, I do not subscribe to a life where you are saying you are waiting to become a famous star and you are just going to do nothing except writing. I think I would first advise anyone who feels like they're a writer to start from just practical economic independence. find a job, get a salary, and find time to do your writing. Wait until a point where that writing might sustain you or might be able to sustain you or and your family before you give up work. When I wrote Baba Segi's Wives, I had a full-time job working as a teacher in the UK, getting to school at 8 and leaving at 6. And my writing schedule was 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. every day. That's how I wrote that novel. I think people need to understand that, yes, there's a lot of discipline involved, but your situation, what is happening with that? Are you going around begging people for money when you really should just try to get a job? You can be a lot of things and be a writer. So, and I'm saying that just to premise a lot of the stuff that I'm maybe going to say. If you want to be a writer or you think you have people come to me and tell me I have a book in me, and I'm like, great. Many of us have books in us. Luckily, some of those books are meant to remain inside us. But there are, of course, some stories that are incredible and should be shared with the world. The fact that you have a story and you think the world should hear it, sometimes you are not the person that's supposed to write that story. Meaning, if you do not have the capacity to be a writer and to write in the form that you feel that story should be presented to the world, then you'll just be on that, you'll have that ambition for a very long time. Because it's not everybody that generates ideas, that's also has the gift or the talent to put that writing, that story into words. It could be that they're more suited for film. It could be that they're more suited for radio plays. So it's really very important to understand, okay, this is my story. What form do I really want it to take? What should it take? And that's where you start sort of talking to people. If you have been bitten by the bug and your heart and your mind and your fingers are telling you that you need to write a book, then your first port of call is to find at least 5 books similar to that one that you intend to write and go and read them first. Just go and read them to have an understanding of the way that the stories unfold, the way the character arcs, looking at how the language of the author, trying to see, okay, where am I most comfortable? Do I like this person who writes in first person? You know, where it's, I did this, I walked there, and you understand the limitations of that. When you're using the first person narrative, it means you cannot describe places where you are absent. So that's an immediate limitation. Are you going to write in the third person all narrative voice, which means you have an all-seeing eye, and you can talk about an event happening in Songwater. From there, in the next page, you're talking about an event happening in Egbeda. You're talking about an event happening in Egbe or Aja. It's that way you are more comfortable. All these things take a lot of personal experimentation, experimenting with your voice. Okay, this sounds better. Then, of course, you have peers. Nobody writes in a vacuum. You always have a group, like people that read your work, you read theirs, friends. They can be anywhere in the world. But if it's a WhatsApp group or a listserv or something that just means anybody who writes something can share it, and then all your peers can read it and they can rip it apart, and you develop a very tough skin as well. Because criticism of our work, things that are heartfelt, that we feel like we've written from the depths of our hearts with our great talent. When people say, what is this you have written? It can be very, very unnerving and very, very devastating. So you've got to constantly understand. I mean, it happens even with when my book Baba Segi came out, there was a couple in America. The way they destroyed that book, it shocked me. I almost felt like, am I sure I ever want to write another book again? What
Oh
is this
dear.
nonsense? You know what I mean? So you get some of those experiences sometimes as well. That is just to tell you, do not become a writer if you are oversensitive.
Mm.
Because a lot of what will be written about your work, you will not even be in a position to respond to the person who wrote it. You're not going to spend your writing life trying to say, no, no, that's not what I meant about that character. Let me really tell you what was happening. You're not going to get that opportunity 90% of the time. So having peer reviews is really important. Just having your mates, people who are writers like yourself. From there, you graduate to kind of reviews or getting some, when you have a substantial amount together, like 3 chapters, that's when you then say, okay, let me approach some of the writers I admire. Let me even see what they think of my work. And if you're lucky, you will find somebody who's willing to read your work, and they may give you a very short review, like, keep going, this is great, or you need to give this more thought. There can be all sorts of feedback. Try and get as much information as you can. Very important for me to say to you, do not, please, please, nobody writes a book, a perfect book in their first draft. That Baba Segi's that Secret Lives of Baba Segi's Lives, there's no way I did not write that book from beginning to end anything less than 12 times.
Whoa.
People need to understand that. Your editor will tell you, go back to the beginning now, work your way through to the end. And in this time, maybe they'll just tell you, I love the book, but we're not really getting enough of a sense of the environment. So what that means that you go back to the beginning, you yourself looking for opportunities. Maybe somebody is looking out of the window in the book. You quickly say, I heard he could see a fine blue sky. Trees were waving in the wind. I had a feeling like I wanted to go outside and touch the stones. What I'm saying is that you constantly find those opportunities as you are reading to do what your editor told you, to insert those new things. The next time the editor might say, but I'm not hearing enough of this person's voice. You go back to the beginning again, and where they just said yes, you make sure they say more than yes. Yes, but I would like to go to the shop too. In fact, I don't even like the tie that James is wearing. You make them more of a person. You make that character have more life. Too many people think they're just going to sit and write a book in 6 weeks from beginning to end, and it's going to be okay. There are some miracle workers. Priya Haim wrote her book Hyambel in 2 weeks. Yes, it happens sometimes, but it's very unlikely, especially for young people. So the next stage, therefore, you have after your peers, then the older, perhaps more established writers or institutions, you start sharing your work. At this point, listen, writing is like building a portfolio. It's like you're an artist. If somebody says, let me see your work, you don't say, come, let me just take you to National Gallery where you see my portrait on the wall. No, you have a portrait, you have a portfolio on hand, even if it's digital, and you can immediately show them your work, right? With a writer, what you should be doing is submitting your work to as many magazines, journals, lit mags, e-zines as possible. Look for them. That's your portfolio. So if 2 writers are in front of me, and once they give me 10 pages of a manuscript, I'm like, hey, so what have you done? And they'll say, no, I've just been writing this book. Here you go. Then another one gives me the same 10 pages. And that one says to me, well, I've published in Agbowo, I've published in Ake Review, I've published in some other magazines around the African Doke Magazine, Lorway, so many another. You give me a list of 6 people that have accepted your writing, and you show me the evidence, and you give me your 10 pages. I'm definitely going to want to go with that one, because they've also been through the work. They've submitted to places, they've been rejected, they've gone back to put it together again and resubmitted somewhere else. That is the drill. That's the journey. Nothing happens easily. People are attracted a lot of the time to what they consider to be fame. They want to be like Chimamanda. They want to be like this. There's a reason why Chimamanda is who she is, because you don't get a lot of them in any generation. You get, 1 or 2, 3, 4, 5 really breakout authors. Everybody else is kind of operating at another level where most of them have other full-time jobs. So people need to manage their expectations. And if you're giving your friends and your family your things to read, and they're all saying, Paula, you are the next William Shakespeare. If they're saying that to you, you should be wary. It is absolute strangers that need to look at your work. And it's also not those people on Twitter either, because some of them, they're just writing nice comments because they like the way you look. A real critic, even if it's negative, will not give you feedback on Twitter. They will probably do it by email. So what I mean by that is that thing I mentioned about peer review. It's got to be peers, but peers with whom you share the experience. You're all on your literary journey together. So from there, your peers to the more established writers, from there you send to, of course, between your peers and the established writers, start sending your books, build up a portfolio. What have you published? Where have you been published? Everybody respects that. Every editor respects that. After that, the next step is submissions to publishing houses. Most publishing houses will say to you that they want a synopsis. So you must know your book from beginning to end. You should be able to tell me the story of that entire book in 2 pages. So you have your synopsis, and then they will also ask, most of the time, for the first 3 chapters or the first 50 pages of your manuscript. So a lot of the time, like for us, we probably get 100 applications like that every month. Lots of people constantly sending us, and out of them, 98% will be rejected. One, because Reader Books is very specific about the type of writing that we want to publish and the type of author that we want to work with, because we work closely with our authors. We do a very close editing. We want to be part of our writers' journeys so that we move them, we can introduce them to other festivals, we can sell their books at other book fairs so that the books are available in other languages. It's not about volume for us. It's about quality, and it's about being on a journey together. I've looked at all the publishing houses, the big ones, the big 5, the next ones, the independents, and I definitely want to operate like an independent, and that's probably what I can afford. So you wait until they write back to you. They might say, this could be good, but you need to do this. You go back, you amend your manuscript, you send it back. They might say an outright no, or they might say, we really like this manuscript. Can you send the rest of it? And that's where it starts. And the next stage is contracting. Or maybe they give you a small advance to say, well done, you're now an author. Now we want you to start working on your novel. In our publishing house, we have quite
and okay. Can you hear me?
So yeah,
yes, I can.
So I sit with my 4 editors, for instance, and we read each book we work on from beginning to end. We read out. So we take turns in reading out. And I've used that to train them to understand that it's not just what you read in your head when you're editing a book. It's also how the words sound. You can edit very efficiently when you read how a character says something. And then we send it back to you. And then we give you a publication date. We make an offer. We say, okay, we want to publish this book for 5 years. We're going to be giving you this amount in royalties. And a lot of the time, we take on the entire financial responsibility. I mean, so that's the journey.
And that is a whole masterclass on, on being an author and publishing your book. But now the people have questions. So I'll start with
Mhm.
this one from Oluwaseun on WhatsApp, who says, how do we deal with plagiarism when we keep showing people all we write? And this is a very interesting question because I know sometimes you've seen some posts on Twitter about how I showed my work to this person and they make a movie or they write a book and everything was almost verbatim. So,
Yeah. Do you know what's the person's name? Oluwaseun or
yep,
yeah?
Oluwaseun.
That is an incredible question. But I think it's also important that you have a circle of people that you trust. And even when we say plagiarism, recently I was editing a book that was sent to us that we had accepted for publication. And right in that book, I saw lines that were lifted from The Secret Lives of Baba Segi's Wives. And I saw lines that had been, you can tell that they had seen the structure of a sentence, but they just decided to put other words. Hello? Hello? Are you back?
Yes, we are back. Can you hear
Yeah,
me? Great. Please go on.
absolutely. So I've seen that's being honest with you. I've seen that. So I'm editing a book and I'm like, hold on. I had to go and fish out the PDF from 14 years ago of my book. And I said, but this is exactly the same thing. I've experienced it. And I know that there's a way that when you read, um, things can get stuck in your mind. And then when you are writing, you actually believe that it came from
Yes,
your own
please.
head. Um, so I'm just saying sometimes how it happens, but we do know that there's some notorious people out there who have got a PhD in plagiarizing other people's work. And I think the people have done the right thing, which is to call them out publicly, send emails and messages to whatever publications they've been in. Um, but the big lesson is keep your circle small and make sure it's a circle of people you trust. And when I'm writing creatively, for instance, especially when I'm writing my novel, I tend not to read Nigerian novelists, interestingly. I try to go elsewhere because I know how quickly that thing can happen. How you just
Hmm.
absorb something, you like a scene, and you're thinking, the person was standing by a tree. What if the person was, swinging from the tree with both hands? That's what I'll put in my own, you know what I mean? And next thing you've forgotten you even read the person standing by a tree. So, and then the person who wrote that one can be like, why is your own character also by a tree? That happens. Um, and also we must also have the humility to understand that very little writing is actually unique.
Hmm.
I have had I've had ideas by novels where I was shocked when somebody told me that there was a novel that had been written with that exact idea by somebody in Austria. Obviously, I've never talked to them. They could not have heard from me, but many people are thinking the same thoughts at the same time.
I guess it's true what they say that no idea is exclusive. You have no
Mhm.
idea how many people are thinking of the same idea, think it's is exclusive to you. Thank you. All right. Wilson has a question and says, extend my greetings to your guests as well. Talking about writing a book, are there skills to be are there skills needed to be acquired? Is a time frame for certain topic? And should an author need a sponsor? Oh, she has answered a number of these questions. How should he go about it? Besides, how the sponsorship works? What are the summary of the agreements involved? Are there any publishing house do publish that do publish books on behalf of authors and being paid the author's royalties? Wow, Wilson, are you just joining? Do you want to quickly do a summary of some of the questions?
Yeah. What was the first one? Let's just
The
start.
first
Let me
question,
do a
are there
sentence.
skills that needs to be acquired for you to become an author?
Absolutely, absolutely. You will know if you're a good writer or not. You know how easily writing comes to you. But the best skill, the best place to get the skills to be a good writer is through reading. People say it, and I know it sounds like a cliche, but it's the truth. You just need to read. The more you read, the more you figure out what your own style is. So you'll be like, okay, I like the way this person writes. This is how I want to write. And then you keep on refining it. Next.
And the next question is there a time frame for a certain topic?
There's no time frame. People have been known. I've been writing my last book now for 10 years, but I don't have time because of everything else I do. So if you set me a time frame, you'll be wasting your time. I will write and it will finish when it's finished. There's no time frame. Some people write a novel in 6 months. It's up to you how quickly you write, how much time you have to write.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Should an author need a sponsor?
No. Um, uh, uh, well, yes or no in a way, because in an ideal world, it would be possible to have a sponsor. It's the same thing with music, you know. You kind of need a bit of a godfather is the wrong word, but wouldn't it be great if it was like the UK where they have the Arts Council, and that's kind of like the almighty arts godfather. It's the Arts Council. So if you're a novelist, you can tell them, listen, I need a year. I don't want to work. I just need upkeep of £2,000 a month. But I can tell you I'll be done with this novel at the end of the year. If you're lucky and you show them what you've done already and they believe you, you pass all their tests, they will give you money every month for upkeep. And for that one, sorry, every month for a year. And it means you can take time out of your busy life to really focus on the writing. But they will be expecting to see what you produced at the end. In that way, you've got a sponsor. We don't have that system. We don't have a working arts council, in my view, that's really focusing on the important things. If I was heading an arts council, I would want to basically specialize just in authors and help them facilitate that sort of writing period where possible, especially where they've got talent and they've got real writing muscle. I would like to see their dreams come true, especially when I think the demonstration of that will ultimately be to the glory of our country, and just being able to say what we are able to achieve within our own country. It would be great, but it's a very expensive system. I don't think there's a government in Africa that's serious enough at this time to know that that's one of the ways we are going to get ahead with our publishing industry.
That was going to be one of my questions, the challenges that authors face, but I guess that's already answered.
Yeah.
And he also asks, are there publishing houses that publish books on behalf of authors and they pay the author royalties?
Of
Like you
course,
mentioned.
most
Yeah.
publishing. I don't know any publishing house that does what you're saying, which is vanity publishing, where that's all they do, just vanity publishing. You, the author, they will tell you, okay, it will cost you 3 million. You find it, you give it to them. I've not taken any money from any of my publishers. With nonfiction, it can be a situation where I'll say, okay, let's split it 40 to 60. And that is almost always because I'm uncertain of the sales, because I simply don't have enough experience in nonfiction as I do with fiction. But with the books that you see that have the stamp of logo of Wida Books or Lufu, I put down all the money. I pay the designer, I pay the artist for the artwork, I pay the person who does all the layout, I pay for the printing, the lamination, the trimming, the everything. And the more we sell, I just give the author royalties. They know how much we print. Normally a small print run might be 1,000 or 2,000. And as we sell, so we pay royalties in July and January. So every 6 months. So you will know what we've sold. You will see what we made. You will see what 8% of that is. Normally, we have to give 5% withholding tax to the Lagos state government, but the rest of the royalties come to you. There's a writer that we published in Nigeria. I've just paid her 1.3 million in royalties for 2 books.
And on a final note, that question I was going to start with was somehow forgot along the line. How you decided to, or why you decided to become a publisher? Was it born out of your own challenges?
I established my first publishing house when I was 23 years old. It was called Overlonian Press, and it was kind of fashioned after the women's press in those days. That's 27 years ago now. And it's because I could see even then that there just were not enough outlets for voices. There has to be a range of voices. I'm not just looking for literary fiction. I'm looking for people who write good romance. I'm looking for erotica. I'm looking for crime fiction. I'm looking for everything. And I just thought to myself that what we need more than anything are more outlets who are doing things properly. They're not publishing textbooks or educational books. They're just focusing on creative writing. And that's why I did that then. And later on, when I started with reader books, I had much more experience, much more sort of experience with international publishing, knew how to sell rights and everything. And I knew I was well placed to do it, but I was also in a position where I could teach others. So everyone who's been on my team has been able to travel outside the country, to go to a book fair or a book festival, to also to go and negotiate selling some of our books into other international markets. So that's always been the thing. Like, how can we get it right? There are too many books that are just poorly made. Let's have standards. Our books are sold in Kenya, in Ghana, in Sierra Leone, in Tanzania, in Uganda. Our books are first-rate quality, and we are able to ship internationally. Nigeria is missing a trick. All we're doing is importing from India and China. We're not producing anything. We need to turn that around, and earn revenue for the country. But also in doing so, one of the things I love is that I'm able to empower the illustrators, the layout people who just diligently work in the background. And I'm also able to oil the wheels by giving money to the printers so that they can buy the machines they need and continue to improve their output.
It's been a beautiful time having this chat with you, and the time is up. Thank you for allowing us go through the pages of who you are and what you do. It's
Thank
been
you so much.
beautiful. Now, I will
Anytime.
definitely not go without taking this question from Wilson, who's saying, what's the name of your publishing house and the website, and well, how people can get across to you on social media?
Yep. Well, people can reach me directly, Lola Shoneyin. I'm Lola Shoneyin across board, Shoneyin with an H. But the best place to go if you're looking to publish is the website. It's the website that you'll find the information you need. And you always look at the submission guidelines. So you'll find ours at weidabooks.com. Weida, like the Ouida in Benin Republic. So it's OUIDA, weidabooks.com. And you go to the submission headlines and you can write to us, send us whatever, but make sure you follow the guidelines. Our slush pile is huge, so we have to manage things accordingly.
Maybe we'll have this conversation another time, a part two, and then we're exploring another thing about you and what you do. But for now, thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
And bye. Now,
Bye.
for someone who's just joining, don't worry. I know you have missed out on the entire conversation for now, but you can always catch up with it on YouTube. That is at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Again, at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. You can watch, you can share with someone who you think has a capacity to be a great author, but then there are other things involved. And yep, share with them. And we say a huge cheers to to your success. My name is Oluwaseun. And you know that next week we'll be back again on Soul Sisters from 11 right here on Smooth 98.1. From 12 p.m., it will be music out of Africa for Africa and everyone who loves global music. This is Smooth 98.1.
Well, is it? This is a woman. Let's talk about the woman. Women make up more than half of the world's population.
We are done